Hello everyone, this is Rick, and today we are going to talk about the rise of Magadha. Now, Magadha is a most important Janapad among all the 16 Mahajanapad that we have discussed in our last video. So, we are going to see today how Magadha conquered the nearby Mahajanapads and established itself as the first major political power during the period of second urbanization or 6th century BC. So, without doing any delay, let's get into details. Now, setting of Magadha. Before understanding why and how did Magadha rise so much, we need to understand the area of Magadha. Where was it placed and what was the importance of its strategic location? Magadha corresponds to present day districts of Patna and Gaya in Bihar. So, in the state of present Bihar, if we go through the districts of Patna and Gaya, then we will understand where did Magadha originate from. Situated between the Ganga, Son and Vindhya range and the Champa, making it a natural fortress. So Magadha had all these geographic features around it, that is Ganga river, Son river, the Vindhya mountain range, and also Champa was another Mahajanapad, making it a natural fortress. The earliest capital was Girivraja, also known as Rajagriha, a fortified city. So this city had mountain range covering it on all sides. So there was a natural defense around the capital city of Rajagriha. The region of Magadha first gains prominent in the narrative during 2nd century BC. So as we have discussed in our last video that during the 6th century BC, there was a rise of city states in the northern and central part of Indian subcontinent. There were 16 of these city states popularly called as Mahajanapads, and Magadha was one of the most important Mahajanapad among the 16. The annexation of Ang around the middle of 6th century BC, consolidating Magadha's power. So Magadha's power became more prominent when it annexed another Mahajanapad called Ang in the eastern part of Magadha. There was this Mahajanapad, and Magadha annexed it in 6th century BC. Thus, Magadha rose as the most popular power in the eastern part of Indian subcontinent. Now this king Bimbisara was the first important king from the place Magadha. And how did he rise to power? He was from a dynasty called Haryanka dynasty and ascended the throne in about 543 to 544 BC at the age of 15. From this we can understand these informations are all procured from different Buddhist and Jainist texts. So from these texts we come to understand that he became a king at a very young age of 15. An astute diplomat, he fortified Magadha's position by marrying princes of neighboring states. So he formed marital alliances with the neighboring states, and thus fortified his political position. Now when you have a powerful king of your neighboring state as your ally, then obviously you will be more powerful than the others. Bimbisar was responsible for annexing Ang by defeating Brahmadatta. The name of the Anga king was Chulani Brahmadatta, and thus secured the trade routes. So Ang was a very important territory for the junction of all the trade routes in eastern India. However, Bimbisara defeated the king of Ang known as Chulani Brahmadatta and annexed it, securing all the trade routes for his future use. He established a capital at Rajagriha and later Pataliputra, which became significant for its urban center. So at first He established the capital in Rajagriha, which was a naturally fortified city, and later the capital was shifted to Pataliputra by his grandson Udan, and then the two centers became very powerful places of urban development. Bimbisar's reign was marked by both political stability and territorial expansion. So there was political stability during the reign of Bimbisar, and also he expanded his territory. Magadha's governance and social structure. Now, how was the governance of Magad and how was the social structure in those times? Bimbisar maintained an efficient administration and a standing army, the first of its kind in the region. So, this standing army maintained by Bimbisar was the first time any standing army was maintained by any ruler in the Indian subcontinent. Therefore, we come to know about his military efficiency and his efficiency in proper governance of the state. The kingdom was organized into several classes. The Raja Vatta, which means the royal officials, Savakta Mahamatyas, which means the generals, Voharika Mahamatyas, which means judiciary, and the Grama Vojaka or Gramika, which means village headmen. So these are the different classes of royal officials which were appointed by the King Bimbisar in order to have a proper control over his territory. He implemented provincial administration and appointed Uparajas, which means viceroy. The term Uparaja means an agent of the king. At Champa and Mandalika Rajas, which means sub-kings. So he appointed viceroys and sub-kings in different parts of his own territory or the territory in which he had gained dominion upon. Such territory was Champa, which was the capital of Ang. Magadh's administration was known for its systematic collection of taxes and efficient legal system. So the legal system was very much efficient because we find Voharika Mahamatyas, who were the judiciary officials working very hard in order to keep up a proper non-corrupted legal system, and this was also supported with proper collection of taxes from all around his territory. Social classes like the Mahashalas, Shrestins, Vanijas and Sarthavahas played important roles in kingdom's economy. So these were different kind of social classes which devoted their life to specific works, and thus they played a very important role in the growth of Magad and economy of Magad as a whole. Now, religious patronage and infrastructure development. How was the religious tolerance policy of Bimbisar? Bimbisar was a patron of both Buddhism and Jainism, showcasing religious tolerance. So, in those times, in the 6th century, 5th century BC, the Buddhism and Jainism developed in the eastern part of Indian subcontinent almost contemporary to each other. And Bimbisar was one of the very tolerant kings who supported both Buddhism and Jainism, and thus we come to know about his religious tolerance policy. He gifted the famous bamboo grove Karanda Kanivapa to Buddha, fostering a relationship with the Sangh. So there was Buddhist Sangh, which means all the place where the monks practiced and lived according to the principles of Buddhism. So Bimbisar made a gift to them, and the gift was a bamboo grove. Thus he fostered a matured and proper relationship with the Buddhist Sangh. His patronage also extended to infrastructure, building roads and rest houses to facilitate trade and mobility. So he not only supported the different kinds of religions, or not only conquered other states, but also did welfare activities like building roads, rest houses, and these all combined towards the proper maintenance of trade and commerce. Religious movements and state structure under Bimbisara's reign were intertwined, affecting social and political dynamics. So both used to go hand in hand, religious movements and proper governance. Thus, there was a huge positive impact on social and political dynamics of Magadha. Bimbisar's support for religious institutions helped to promote Magadha as a center of learning and culture, and thus Magadha became a hub for different kind of philosophical thoughts and promoted learning and culture in the North Indian subcontinent. Now, legacy and demise of Bimbisara. What was his impact on the politics of ancient India? Bimbisara's rule saw Magadha become a prominent force in northern India. So, during the time of Bimbisara, Magadha became the most prominent force in whole of northern India. He is credited with initiating a series of events that would eventually lead to the establishment of a large empire. So by the 3rd century BC, we find formation of Mauryan Empire under the great Chandragupta Maurya. But it did not happen in a single day. Bimbisara is credited with the initiation process of a series of events that led to the foundation of an empire. Bimbisara was imprisoned in his last days by his son Ajatashatru in a power struggle, a common occurrence in royal successions of the time. So this was a very common occurrence in which the son imprisoned the father in order to gain power, and thus was the fate of Bimbisara, who was imprisoned by his own son Ajatashatru. He died in captivity under circumstances that remain a subject of historical debate. So how did he die? Whether he was really imprisoned or not, this is a subject of debate and research, and so we will not get into those details, but he died in captivity by his son Ajatashatru. Bimbisara's legacy was one of strategic expansion and setting a stage for Magadha's imperial destiny. So Bimbisara's rule set up the stage from where Magadha launched itself in order to become an empire. Ajatashatru's consolidation and conflict. Now we will discuss about Bimbisara's son Ajatashatru. How did he rule and what were his policies, and did he keep up with the expectations from the rulers of Haryanka dynasty? Ajatashatru ruled from 492 to 460 BC, continued the expansionist policies of his father. So just like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru also continued the expansionist policies, and he conquered a lot of territories around the kingdom of Magadha. He fortified the city of Rajagriha and built a new fort at Pataliputra, demonstrating military and strategic prowess. So first he fortified the whole city of Rajagriha, which was the capital of Bimbisara's rule, and also he built a new fort at Pataliputra, which is presently in Patna district of Bihar, demonstrating military and strategic prowess. So these were two important strategic urban centers, both for showing his power and also for the control of trade and commerce. His reign was marked by famous 16-year war against the confederacy of Vajjis. So Vajji confederacy was another popular Mahajanapad around the time, and this was a Gana Sangha, means where a committee of important people ruled over the kingdom. So Ajatashatru fought a famous 16-year war against the Vajjis and eventually conquered them. Ajatashatru employed innovative military strategies like Mahashila Kantaka, which means a large siege engine, and Ratha Mausala, which means a chariot with a mace. So these were few of the technological innovations which were implemented by Ajatashatru in his own military forces. The conflict with the Vajji Confederation highlighted the growing militarization under Ajatashatru's rule. So, a ruler must be capable enough militarily in order to continue a war against a powerful state for 16 years. Thus, from the 16-year war with the Vajji Confederacy, we come to know that Ajatashatru had a great military power under his control. Contributions of Udain. Udain was the grandson of Bimbisara and son of Ajatashatru. Udain assumed kinship around 460 BC after Ajatashatru's death. So after Ajatashatru's death, his son Udain became the ruler, credited with establishing strategically placed capital Pataliputra. So he was the one who shifted the capital from Rajagriha to Pataliputra, and thus he made a very strategic decision in order to get both military control and control over trade routes in a single time. Shifted the Magadha capital from Rajagriha to Pataliputra, favoring trade and military defense. So Pataliputra was a location which was favored both for trade advantages and also for military defense. Thus, Udain shifted the capital of Magad from Rajagriha to Pataliputra. Udain's reign is noted for reinforcing Magadha's territorial integrity and urban development. So he is very much influential for his role in reintegrating the urban development of Magad. So Magad became chief urban center and promoted trade and culture, almost controlled the trade and commerce of whole of northern India at the time of Udain. His governance laid down a foundation for Pataliputra's future as a power center in Indian history. So from this time onwards, we find a period when one who controls Pataliputra controls the whole of northern India, and thus was the impact of Udain's decision to make Pataliputra the power center of Magadhan Empire. Initially, it became the capital of eventually it became the capital of the Nanda dynasty and went forward to become the capital of Mauryan dynasty, which was considered to be the first important and one of the best functioning empire in whole of the Indian history. Now Shishunaga dynasty. This was a very short-lived dynasty, but its contribution cannot be ignored. It came after the Haryanka dynasty and was founded by a person named Shishunag. This dynasty followed the Haryanka dynasty with dates not specified in the text. So we don't get specific dates from the research which have been conducted till now. We don't get specified dates of the Shishunaga dynasty. Shishunag's reign marked the further expansion of Magadha and reconsolidation of power. So there were a few expansionist activities done by the Shishunag's reign, and this projected and reconsolidated the power of Magadha. Kalashoka, also known as Kakavarna, was Shishunag's successor who organized the second Buddhist council. So the second Buddhist council was organized by Kalashoka and he was the successor of Shishunag. From here we can understand that the Shishunaga dynasty rulers were patrons of Buddhism and valued intellectual philosophies within their kingdom. The dynasty is credited with shifting the capital to Pataliputra, which would become an important economic and cultural center. So Udain started the shift, and Shishunag dynasty continued to reside in Pataliputra and continued to establish Pataliputra as the capital of Magadhan Empire. Thus, Pataliputra became an important center of trade and commerce and also culture. This period was significant for setting the stage for Nanda dynasty's emergence. So this period of Shishunag dynasty set the stage on which the Nanda dynasty ruled upon. Now Nanda dynasty. The Nandas were can be considered by a few historians to be the first powerful empire in India. Whether it's true or how much of it can be an actual fact, that is a matter of debate, but no doubt Nandas were few of the most powerful dynasties ever in Indian history. Mahapadma Nanda, described as the first historical emperor of India, reigned from 4th century BC. So Mahapadma Nanda was the founder of Nanda dynasty, and he is considered as the first historical emperor of India by many historians. He reigned from late 4th century BC. He was called the destroyer of all the Kshatriyas and expanded the empire through military conquest. So he was called destroyer of all the Kshatriyas because he expanded his territory, and the rulers of other kingdoms in which he established his dominion were mostly Kshatriyas. So thus he considered himself to be the destroyer of all Kshatriyas, that is the ruling class of the caste division in later Vedic India. This represented the zenith of Magadha's power, wealth and territory before the rise of Mauryan dynasty. So before the rise of Mauryan dynasty, the Nandas were the most powerful powers in ancient India, and thus at this time Magadha was a center of power and wealth. The Nandas introduced administrative and agricultural reforms, consolidating the empire's resources. So there was proper management activities in case of resource management, and that can be evidenced by introduction of proper administrative and agricultural reforms. Mahapadma Nanda was also known for his patronage of infrastructure, aiding the growth of Magad. So Mahapadma Nanda supported lot of infrastructural activities around the time, and thus indirectly promoted the growth of Magad as the first empire in ancient India. Military and economic strength under the Nandas. Here in the map on the left hand side, the darkened portion are the territories in which Nandas had their control. The Nandas are noted for their massive army, which included a cavalry, a significant number of war elephants, a symbol of their military might. So for the first time we find a very well organized army, which was a standing army in the Indian subcontinent, and this army had horses and a significant number of war elephants. So we come to understand that there was not only a single unit in the army, but it used to function along with different kind of regiments, or of which cavalry and war elephants regiments were very significant. The use of iron tools and weapons under the Nandas gave Magadhan soldiers a distinct advantage in warfare. So this is the time when iron became a proper establishing force under the Nandas. Therefore, Nandas had proper access to iron mines, and they could use iron tools into weapons. They could modify iron tools into weapons, which gave the Magadhan soldiers a distinct advantage in different kind of wars which they fought. They were also involved in large scale trade within the subcontinent and distant lands, including Persia and Greece. So there was trade relationships which went as far as Persia and Greece in Europe. The Nanda dynasty's focus on infrastructure such as roads and waterways improved commerce and mobility. So they focused a lot on the welfare activities, which indirectly made them as the rulers of Magadhan kingdom, as the most powerful rulers of Magadhan kingdom. And the infrastructures where they focused on roads, they focused on waterways which were important for trade, and thus improved the commerce and mobility among the Magadhan territories. Magadha under the Nandas became a hub of economic activity and a magnet for both wealth and talent. So this was a hub of economic activity, and it was an attractive thing for all the travelers all over the world to come to India from the time of Nandas when they ruled in Magadha. Now, downfall of the Nandas and the emergence of Mauryan dynasty. The rule of Nandas ended with Dhanananda, whose exact dates of reign are not specified in the text. But from the Greek documentaries, we come to know that when Alexander came in to invade the Indian subcontinent, Dhanananda was the ruler, and few things also say that Alexander was somewhat scared of Dhanananda's power, and that's why he did not venture past the Indus Valley. So this is how true this is a matter of debate, but Alexander seemed to have been quite aware of the power of Nandas. Their decline was attributed to a perceived loss of public support and military overreach. So they annexed a lot of territory, and probably their administration was not well equipped enough to keep all the people under their control. And there was also a lot of corruption in the last stages of Nanda's empire. Therefore, they lost all kinds of public support, and thus they crumbled. Nanda's downfall paved the way for the rise of Chandragupta Maurya and establishment of Mauryan Empire. About the Mauryan Empire we will discuss in detail, and we will attribute a specific video series for different aspects of Mauryan Empire. It is widely believed that Chanakya, a key figure in Chandragupta's rise, played a crucial role in Nanda's dynasty's overthrow. So Nandas were overthrown not only because of military power of Chandragupta Maurya, but also the diplomacy and political things done by the person named Chanakya or Kautilya, who was the brain behind the rise of Mauryans. The transition from Nanda to Mauryan dynasty marked a significant shift in ancient Indian politics and power structure. So this transition from Nanda empire to the Mauryan dynasty marked a very significant event in Indian history, and the Mauryan went on to become the chief power center of the world at that point of time. Now, Magadha's urban growth. How was the urban structure of Magadhan Empire? Pataliputra, the capital, emerged as a prominent urban center during this period. So, Pataliputra, it was a very fortified city, important for both its strategic location from the point of trade and commerce, and also from the point of military defense technology. Therefore, Pataliputra emerged as a prominent urban center. The city became synonymous with administrative sophistication and cultural prosperity. So Pataliputra almost became a type city for the whole of Indian subcontinent in the aspect of culture and cultural prosperity. It was a very sophisticated and advanced city considering the contemporary cities from other parts of the world. Urban planning and fortification efforts made Pataliputra one of the most secure cities of its time. So it was very planned city and very well organized city, and thus Pataliputra became a hub for security. It was very much secured from attacks from outside, and thus it became one of the most precious and secured cities of its time. Rajagriha and Pataliputra both served as significant nodes in the overland and riverine trade networks. So Pataliputra was on the bank of Ganga river. Hence, both Rajagriha and Pataliputra had significant role to play on overland and riverine trade routes across the Indian subcontinent. The urbanization of Magadha contributed to its prominence as a center of learning and philosophical thought. So Magadha, with its advanced urban features, proper trade routes and proper kind of administration, became a center for learning and became a cultural hub in the whole of Indian subcontinent. Role of Idan in Magadha's rise. Now this was the age of Idan. Hence, all the implements had to be directly or indirectly connected with iron technology. And Magad was fortunate enough to get access to different kinds of iron mines from the Chotanagpur plateau. Hence, iron definitely had a very important role in the rise of Magad as the proper and most important power in North Indian subcontinent. Iron tools were extensively used in Magad for agriculture, warfare, and provided a strategic edge to the Magadhan people. So iron tools were used for agriculture. We have discussed the role of iron in the later Vedic series. From there, if we can refer to that video, then we will know that iron had a very important role to play in agriculture, which means clearing of forest, and thus it resulted in the production of agricultural surplus that was the main factor behind the growth of urbanization. Thus, agriculture could have been possible only because of role of iron. And also, iron played an important role in the manufacture of weapons, which provided a strategic edge to the Magadhan soldiers. Clearing of forest and bringing new land under cultivation was facilitated by iron implements. Clearing of forest could only be done with the help of iron axes. The army benefited from superior iron weapons, giving them a decisive advantage in warfare. So, from the different wars which Magadha fought, iron obviously played an important part. Iron trade became a profitable venture for Magad, further bolstering its economy. So, Magad did not only make weapons or agricultural implements with iron, but also traded them and became rich. The technological advances in iron usage were a key factor in Magadha's ascendancy in the region. So, the technological innovations with the help of iron implements were the key factors behind Magadha's rise to power. Now, influence of trade routes. Magadhans were not only important for their military power or administrative control, but they were also important because they functioned as the trading junction of whole of northern Indian subcontinent. Initially disadvantaged in trade networks compared to Kosala, Magad strategically expanded to command the Ganga and its tributaries. So initially Kosala was the most important trading power in the region. When we have discussed about the 16 Mahajanapads, we have discussed how Kosala functioned as a trading hub in 6th century BC. But by the time of Nandas, Magad strategically expanded itself and commanded the trade routes in North Indian subcontinent, mainly the trade routes which used to run through the river Ganga. The annexation of Anga was crucial for securing trade routes and economic prosperity. So, the annexation of the territory of Ang by Bimbisar in the east of Magad was very much important factor which led to secure trade routes in the eastern part of Indian subcontinent, because Ang was another important trading junction. Magad's geographical location directly on the major trade routes catalyzed its importance and political dominance. So, Magad was geographically located on a very strategically and commercially important position. Lucrative Southeast Asian trade routes were accessed through Bengal, enhancing wealth. So, there was access to Southeast Asian territories through the province of Bengal, and thus Magadha's wealth enriched upon proper focus on trade and commerce. Now, social and political innovations in Magad. There were different kind of philosophical upliftments in the minds of Magadhan people. The Magadhan society was marked by significant social and political changes away from rigid Vedic Brahmanical order. So there was rigid Vedic Brahmanical order. I am not talking about the Rig Vedic age. This was the later part of later Vedic age. Hence, by that time, the Brahmanical order had very much been established in the Indian subcontinent. Therefore, Magadhan society was very much marked with significant social and political changes. The governance met the socio-economic needs of the Mahashalas, Shrestins, Vanijas and Sarthavahas, who were the new economic stakeholders. So people who had economic stakes were the controllers of power in the Magadhan kingdom. The social readiness of people without tribal hindrance allowed for the establishment of a strong government structure. So there was social readiness within the people. The emergence of new religious movements like Buddhism and Jainism coincided with the state's rise. So Buddhism and Jainism were becoming popular because they were contemporary to each other, and along with that Magadhans also became popular. So the rise of Magad was very much hand in hand with the rise of Buddhism and Jainism, and thus even today we find Buddhism and Jainism has a lot of influence on the territory of Bihar and eastern Uttar Pradesh. The state under the rule of visionary leaders like Bimbisara and Ajatashatru became a center for economic and cultural advancement. So there were many great rulers who helped Magadha's rise to power, and they were rulers like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru and also later Nandas. Now, imperial ascendancy of Magadha. Here we will discuss about the summary of the entire presentation. Magadha rose from regional power to significant empire under the leadership of visionary rulers like Bimbisara and Ajatashatru. The strategic geographical location and annexation of vital territories expanded trade and military strength of Magadha. Innovations in governance and administration alongside a robust standing army laid the foundation for an efficient state mechanism. Magadh's urban centers like Rajagriha and Pataliputra became the heart of political power, economic prosperity and cultural development in the whole of Indian subcontinent. The legacy of Magadh's rise set the stage for Mauryan Empire and contributed to influence the Indian subcontinent for centuries, highlighting the enduring impact of its period of ascendancy. So that was all about Magadha and how did it rise to power. In our next videos, we will discuss about different aspects of Indian subcontinent during the period of second urbanization. So please support me so that I can bring brighter contents in future. And if you have not gone through the previous videos, please go through them. I have discussed every aspect of second urbanization in very much detail and will continue to do so until the end of this series. So thank you. And thanks for your love and support.